Hello, and welcome back to Go With The Flow. I'm Shannon, and I'm once again joined by my fellow Writing Center mentors, Ava, Chris, and Josh. Today, we're going to be talking about some of the most common writing challenges students face and how we can help you tackle them. So first, I'm going to start off with a little icebreaker question, and I will begin with Ava. I'm going to ask you guys the same question, so you can just listen in. So my first question is, what's one writing habit you used to struggle with as a student?
Ooh, that is a great question. I think one writing habit that I used to struggle with a lot as a writer was getting started. I thought that getting started was like the most daunting part of a writing assignment, and it was really confusing just to get all my ideas organized. But another thing that I think I got better at was trying not to make my writing perfect the first time around. I always tried to perfect a paragraph before I would move on to the next, and I think that it just slowed me down a lot. So now I try to get all my ideas down and then go through it at the end once I have more of a finished product and work on perfecting it at that point.
Yeah, I agree. I've always thought that starting the paper is the most difficult part, and even now I still struggle with it, but I think with the advice that you just shared, I have also kind of implemented that in my own writing, so I agree, and I think that's a great one to point out. Okay, so Chris?
Okay, one writing habit that I kind of used to struggle with was forming an opinion for argumentative essays before I actually did the research. And then I go and I look for individual research articles for the purpose of proving that point. And sometimes that would just struggle to write the essay because I didn't have the correct data for what I was trying to prove.
Yeah, that's also something that I struggled with. I think that's a really common one. I feel like sometimes when writing a paper that's opinion-based, it can be hard to not absorb the opinion of everyone else around you. Even sometimes like your professor or your teacher, it can be hard to not apply their opinion to your paper. And I think it's really important to be able to form your own opinions. Josh?
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as Ava. I used to, and I think I still do struggle with this a bit, of just being a perfectionist. Trying to get it right on the first go. Yeah, and I to be honest, I could probably work on that a bit more as a writer. And I agree that just try to get your thoughts down on the page first before you really go back and nitpick your writing.
I agree, and I think that's something a lot of students need to hear sometimes, is just put your ideas on the paper and the rest will come together as you go on. So we're going to move on and talk about thesis statements. So we're going to start with Ava, and I'm just going to ask you why you think so many students struggle with their thesis statement.
Okay, so I actually just had an appointment last week where I met with a student that just wanted to focus on writing their thesis statement, and they explained that they never really got too much instruction on what a thesis statement is and how to make it strong. In high school, I was in an AP Lang class, and my professor drilled into us everything about a thesis statement, what goes into it, what makes it strong, what makes it not. So I feel like a lot of students might not have that background about writing a thesis statement specifically, but I think that it's also hard to come up with a single strong statement about your entire paper. Like, that can be kind of difficult to just come up with one sentence that captures all of the ideas that you're going to include in your paper. And of course, it can be more than one sentence. I'm just saying, as an example, that can be really difficult to summarize your whole paper into one strong sentence.
Yeah, I agree. I think it can definitely be intimidating to hear you need to sum up your whole paper in one sentence. But I think when it comes down to it, just being able to organize your thoughts like we've talked about last week and like we're talking about again, and getting everything that you need onto the page is extremely helpful, because sometimes you write your thesis statement and you don't even know it. So Chris, I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what makes a thesis statement strong?
Okay, so sort of what makes a thesis statement strong is being able to, well, yes, sort of summarize what you're actually arguing throughout your paper in that one or two sentences, but really having it be something that really, if it's an argumentative paper, something that really summarizes your specific argument and what you're arguing. And sometimes if it's a like informational, summarizing like the importance of whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a good like summary of what a thesis statement should be and how to make it stronger. So moving on to Josh, I just wanted to ask if maybe you could come up with a quick example of a vague thesis statement versus a stronger and clearer one.
I guess it depends on the topic. Could you give me a topic?
Pizza?
Pizza. I guess maybe the student is writing a paper about what the best type of pizza is. And in their thesis statement, if it's vague, they might not mention anything about which type of pizza is the best, or they might not mention some examples, things like that, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it pretty much does.
Bizarre example.
Sorry. That's my bad. Okay. I know. I don't know why I picked pizza. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Our next segment is on transitions. So Ava, why are transitions so important when it comes to writing flow?
So I think transitions can make or break a paragraph, especially if you're looking at a paper as a whole. Transitions are super, super important for connecting your ideas together and just making your paper stronger as it is. I think that it's always a great idea to start a new paragraph with a transition, especially if it sort of ties into the last sentence of the previous paragraph. But I think that transitions are one of the most important things in writing, and in my writing, I always like to include transitions at the beginning of my paragraph, but also throughout the paragraph, just so that everything flows together nicely and that it doesn't sound choppy or like the ideas are not connected or they're all over the place.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that was a great way to say that. Moving on to Chris, so what would the difference be between using transitional words, like however, therefore, so on and so forth, and creating actual like logical flow between your paragraphs and or ideas?
Okay, so for using words like however, like you don't necessarily create a logical flow by using those, especially if you use them in the wrong way. For example, I had an essay quite recently, or I was reading it, I didn't write it, but the essay had however, and then it introduced the same information that it had introduced before. So there was no connection between the first part and the second part in terms of like a logical argument. So if you're trying to create a logical flow, you need to make sure that each part has its own logical flow.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to make sense as an argument. This is true, therefore this.
Yeah, and I think something that people struggle with is from a young age, I feel like we learn those transitional words like however and therefore, and some students might get it stuck in their head that that's the only way to transition throughout a paragraph. So I think maybe that's something that people struggle with. Like, for example, I even remember like teachers requiring us to use those kinds of words throughout our writing, and it was something that I had to grow out of. So Josh, continuing on the topic of transitions, could you give me an example? I'm sorry, I keep asking you these hard ones. Can you give me an example of a weak transition versus a stronger one?
Kind of going off of what Chris said, if you're like transitioning from one idea to the next and there's like no movement, like you're just staying in the same place, I feel like that would be a weak transition. But if you're transitioning into like developing your argument, adding new support, or maybe drawing attention to a counter argument, things like that, if there's movement between one idea to the next through your transition, then I think that would be more effective.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important when writing your transition sentences to just keep in mind what the relationship between those sentences are, or paragraphs. So rather, it might be an argumentative paper, so they could be opposing sides, or they could be very related and have to have that, like, this is just like this kind of flow. So I think it's important to keep those things in mind. So we're going to move on to just other common challenges that people have when it comes to writing. So Ava, I just wanted to ask you, what is like a really common challenge that you see students have when they come into the writing center? So it could be like grammar, citations, overquoting, saying too much.
So APA 7 is everyone's worst nightmare. I'll keep my opinion out of it. But yeah, I feel like a lot of the students that come in, like they want help on either citations or something else. We always end up talking about citations no matter what, because APA 7 is like the newest version of it, and not every class requires you to use APA 7. Some people do MLA, or some people are only familiar with MLA, but then their teacher wants them to use APA, so they're unfamiliar with it, or they don't know all the rules with APA, which there are a lot. But yeah, I think APA help is definitely what I see most in the appointments that I meet with. Again, whether that was the point of the appointment or not. But there's a lot of great resources that we offer at the Writing Center about APA help. We did have an APA workshop, which is super helpful. We do presentations during certain class periods to talk about APA, and there's also digital versions of like APA reference guides online that are available to students.
Yeah, I agree that APA is such a struggle for a lot of students. It can be really confusing because I think it just has a lot more information to go through than MLA style. And I think some students just can get overwhelmed with the information that they need to apply to their paper when using APA. But yeah, just like Ava said, we have a lot of great resources in the Writing Center, including our OWL. And you can even stop by the Writing Center. If you prefer a physical packet of an APA guide, we can give you one. So Chris, I just wanted to ask, what is one piece of advice that you would give students to increase their confidence when it comes to writing?
Okay, for confidence, I always recommend sort of the same thing, which is organization. Basically, being able to put together, whether it is an outline or just sort of a list of like topics that you want to cover beforehand. Being able to organize your paper well before you even write it can lead to having a high amount of confidence when writing that actual paper.
Yeah, I think that's great advice to give anyone, really, who's writing anything. Organization is so important, and I feel like if you go into writing a paper without any ideas, it'll only make your life more difficult. So, just a reminder that this is the Writing Center podcast. So, Josh, how can the Writing Center help with these kinds of problems?
Yeah, so you can always schedule an appointment. That's the one thing we always encourage students to do. If you feel like you need any kind of writing help, it doesn't even have to be related to some of the things we were talking about, but in relation to the things we were talking about, schedule an appointment. You can come in person, you can meet with us over the phone or video call, or you can submit a paper as an online response. All those different appointment types are available to you. You know, whatever kind of help you need, you can mention that in your appointment form, and we will do our best to help you with that.
Yeah, great. Okay, and just a reminder that we do offer workshops, like our APA workshop that Ava mentioned that we had this previous week. It was a wonderful time. And we also provide online resources. You can visit our OWL if you just Google Lewis University OWL. It'll take you straight to our Writing Center homepage. For this next segment, we are going to move on to our word of the week. This is something that we are going to be doing every episode. Josh picks a word and doesn't tell us anything about it other than the actual word itself, and the rest of us will guess the definition. So, Josh, take it away.
So the word of the week is petrichor.
Oh my gosh.
Petrichor.
Petrichor.
Well, I assume it has something to do with Petra.
And what does that mean?
I don't know.
I'm
My assumption
assuming
is probably.
I'm assuming it's an adjective.
It's a noun, actually.
Oh, okay.
Is it similar to petrified?
Is
No.
That's what I was thinking.
So it has nothing to do with rocks.
So the prefix literally means relating to rocks, but I wouldn't say you're on the right track.
Oh, so it's relating to rocks, but not relating to rocks. That's helpful.
Not the core of a rock.
Sorry?
Not the core of a rock.
No.
That was going to be my guess after
Does-
that question.
Same
but-
brain.
Does core have anything to do with the definition?
Wait,
So
can you spell it?
So it's spelled Petrichor, petrichor. So the petra means relating to rocks, and ichor either comes from Greek or archaic. The Greek definition means the fluid that flows like blood in the veins of the gods, and the
Lava?
archaic meaning is a watery discharge from a wound, which is kind of gross, but yeah. So
So,
Is it like pus?
no, that would be kind of gross for the
So-
podcast.
Well, okay.
So is
Water
it like,
leaking from a wound?
so it's
No.
Is it lava?
It is not lava.
Rock lava? La, la, la.
I think I'm gonna throw in the towel.
I'm not throwing in the towel. Never give up.
I don't get
Never
it.
give up.
Final guesses, Chris and Ava?
Last guess would be actually Ava go first.
oh, I have no idea. It has something to do with liquid in relation to rocks.
Yes.
Question mark? Is that
Or
Yes,
something
but
solid.
no.
I don't know if I have an answer. I've never heard that word in my life.
I feel like I've
it has
heard
nothing to do with bodily fluids.
No, I would not pick that word.
That's
Oh, well,
Does it-
that's
Did you know
confused
this
me.
word previously?
Is it
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Of course. Okay.
so? Is it some kind of excretion from anything, from like a tree or something?
It does have to do with like plants, yes. So you want me
is
to
it-
give you the definition now, or?
Last guess. Does it have to do with oil?
No, it's not oil.
Okay, I quit.
I'm gonna
Good
throw in
try.
the towel.
Good try.
So petrichor means a pleasant smell that frequently accompanies the first rain after a long period of warm, dry weather.
Oh.
Okay,
Oh.
Why are you guys saying, oh, that doesn't make any sense?
No, I feel like I've heard it now that he gave me the definition.
No,
I
I've
feel
never
like-
heard it, but that's a very familiar smell.
So like
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
the scent you would smell after
Yeah.
rain,
So like
Interesting.
my favorite part of spring is what you're saying.
pretty much.
Yeah, now
Okay.
it has a name. Now you know what it's called.
Can you use it in a
Petrichor.
sentence?
Other than the petrichor emanating from the rapidly drying grass, there was not a trace of evidence that it had rained at all.
Oh, Love
wow.
Smells like petrichor.
That was poetic.
well, thank you, Josh. This was another wonderful word of the week. So today we talked about thesis statements, transitions, and a few common struggles that students go through on a daily basis. So just try to remember that you're not alone with these struggles and that a lot of things that you find difficult with writing, so many other students struggle with. So make sure to just visit us at the Writing Center, schedule an appointment. You can go to louisu.mywconline.com to schedule an appointment with us. Make sure you click the Fall 2025 Writing Center schedule. And you can also check out our resources, again, at Lewis University OWL. Just a reminder that the National Day on Writing is October 22nd, so keep an eye out for any events happening on that day. I just want to thank my guests for joining me again this week. I appreciate you guys coming on. It's always wonderful to have you and to hear your opinions. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in once again. I hope to hear from you guys in the comments. Please like and share, and have a good night.